With Kashin Koji having the power over future and Eida monitoring the events of the past, the only way for Boruto to escape his destiny would be by unlocking a Shinjutsu which deals with the present, and that is only possible by manipulating time. It's an attribute of the Jougan which doesn't get talked enough, as the eye itself belongs to a plane which is free of this linear prison. It's a place where beings who decide time and space dwell. So how exactly would this temporal power of Boruto manifest against the current major villain, which is Jura? Well, the likelihood for this power to emerge as a divine intervention in the battle against the Shinju is really high, based on how slim the chances of Boruto are to defeat him. Kashin Koji has already predicted that he is going to lose his life in this battle, no matter what plan or strategy he is following. So in order for something to happen that would actually save his life this time, there must be an awakening of such a power, which could change the timeline on hand in no time. And that's when the temporal Shinjutsu of the Jougan comes into play. It could manifest as an ability which deals in the present to change the current point in the timeline, something that would happen in an altered state of existence, similar to how Momoshiki used to stop time. But in order to understand how exactly this time Shinjutsu is going to work, we will first need to understand why it's the perfect time for the Jougan's awakening. And just for those of you who don't believe this eye to be canon, I have another version of the same theory, which would explain how Boruto will manifest the time Shinjutsu without the pure eye. It's going to be an amazing video, so please show some support to the channel by clicking that subscribe button, and let's begin. The Jougan was first teased by Tonevi in the anime, who I believe acted as a messenger of Shiba or Suzuki. The number one reason to back this claim comes from the place where he dwells, which is the moon, and the Jougan coincidentally is also shaped like a full moon. Now as for why the celestial body has some association with Shiba, it's because his DNA transformed the eyes of Eida and Daemon into crescent and a half moon. So there may be some cosmic alignment between him and the celestial body, which is why even the Jougan is shaped like this. But anyway, Tonevi came to Boruto's dream and told him that your eye will be the star of hope against the destruction that would come to pass. Now this statement right here solidifies the possibility of Jougan's awakening in a number of ways. I'm not saying it would definitely awaken in the manga like this, but if it does, then it would definitely make a lot of sense. So first of all, we have this attribute called the star of hope, which is pretty self-explanatory. The Jougan could be the last resort of Boruto in a situation which would have gotten him killed, in case it did not awaken instinctively. And we have another character with a similar attribute who has coincidentally predicted the death of Boruto. I'm talking about Kashin Koji, also known as the Star of Change. Now while this attribute was given to him by Ishiki for possessing the mighty fate of Jiraiya, likely reflecting how he defied fate and raised a disciple who saved the world from chaos and destruction, but this correlation further got amplified when his prescience ability was unveiled. Koji can calculate all the odds and factors to change the incoming future into a completely different direction. He went by this strategy and was able to get Sarada's broken Mangekyou Sharingan unlocked, but in order to ensure a timeline where the stronger individuals, especially Boruto, survived, he was okay with getting rid of the weaker ones such as Yoru and Konohamaru, and that's something which went against the vision of Boruto for the future. As a consequence, we got to see Boruto interfering in the Shinju battle, spoiling the plans of Koji once for all, and this is where the Star of Change failed. The interruption of a third party prevented him from changing the future for the better, with Boruto becoming the one who got trapped in between as a result of not following orders, and this only means one thing. It's a completely hopeless situation for Boruto, since the only star which has changed his future can't help him anymore due to the complications. So this means it's now the perfect time for the Star of Hope to awaken. Now the second point from this single statement of Tonevi's prophecy, which hints at the awakening of the pure eye, is the mention of some destruction that would come to pass. You may have heard me talk about how it's a metaphorical reference to Jura, the incarnation of a 10 tails who stands for doom and destruction. So what if I told you that Boruto made an obvious mistake in chapter 22, which solidified the possibility of Jura being the same destruction that Tonevi was talking about? Kashin Koji said in an earlier chapter that the Shinju cares about Konoha's heritage, so he won't destroy them unless someone enrages them. And looking at how disrespectfully Boruto let down his curiosity and perspective towards humanity by calling him nothing more than a tree when he asked about love, only means one thing: Jura would definitely now resort to destructive means, and it may be the same reason that will lead to the Jougan's awakening. The cover for chapter 22 has also given a hint for this, as Boruto's background looks very identical to the Pure Eye's design from the anime. Now before I went on to explaining the most awaited ability which is related to time, let's get to the final nail in the coffin for the Jougan theory, which comes straight from the anime. I may be among the very few people who believe that the authors were almost caught up with the entire script of Boruto when the first chapter released, which also showcased the future sequence of Boruto vs Kawaki. The reason for the Jougan to not appear in some vital sequences in the manga, like when Momoshiki's spirit returned to implant the karma, could be because the authors were not certain of the endgame divine plot of the story. The animator Shengsi Huan also hinted at the same, and looking at this hard to ignore connection between Shibai and Boruto, it all makes too much sense. The real Otsutsuki plot would begin after the events of the flash forward. It would be the time when the true role of the Jougan shall manifest, and that's the reason this eye only appeared in the adaptation of the series. The authors could not fit it at the time of the manga release, as they were not sure if it would even make it till the end of the story. They could have always retconned its awakening from the future sequence by replacing it with the Byakugan once this scene would actually make it to the manga. But then we had the last episode of the anime's part 1, which made it clear for the final time that this eye is canon to the story, and we should expect it to awaken anytime soon. The thing with the anime is that it not only lets the authors add more to the larger narrative of the story, but also allows them to integrate small details to turn them into massive visual foreshadowing. Some examples would be the opening and ending themes having sequences which mirrors the omnipotence event of chapter 79, or the whole Mitsuki disappearance arc, teasing us the events of the Code Assault, as well as the Kawaki Resolve saga. Now the thing about the anime foretelling the future spectacle moment in the story is that there could be other such arcs, which would be foreshadowing the events of the manga. And since the current events were taking place in the Land of Wind, we had the best possible anime arc to deduce what's about to happen next in the manga. It was the One Tail's escort arc where Boruto and Shinji encountered Urashiki or Sasuke in the Land of Wind, the same place where the Shinju battle took place. Usually when Urashiki appears, both his eyes look normal, but in this battle specifically, he had the Rinnegan active in both of them, especially during the time when he noticed the Jougan of Boruto. The fact that it's the outskirts of the Land of Wind and Boruto is with Shinji at this moment only means one thing. Urashiki with the Rinnegan was foreshadowing the meetup of Jura and Boruto, where the Shinju might notice the Jougan the same way the Otsutsuki did. It makes too much sense when you realize the Shinju always have their Rinnegan active in both eyes. So if Urashiki was foreshadowing Jura's reaction to Boruto's Jougan, what role could Shinji have in between all this? Well, the first panel of chapter 22 revealed that Shinji might join the battlefield too, as Mitsuki has ordered Araya to grab the Soul Thorn and bring him back. So if he comes to the spot where Boruto is fighting Jura, and then the Jougan activates in front of him, then it can be concluded that the anime did actually foreshadow the manga awakening of the Pure Eye. What's more fascinating is that Urashiki's acknowledgement of the Jougan is actually a foreshadowing for Jura recognizing this eye as well. It could be that it would remind him of some other Otsutsuki, most likely Shibai, whom he had seen a long time ago in the Ten Tails dimension. Looking at how we identified the Senringan of Eida, is definitely a massive possibility that could unveil some brand new Otsutsuki lore into the story. Now that we are pretty much done with all the hints for the Jougan's awakening, let's understand what exactly is the temporal Shinjutsu of Boruto and how it's going to play out in the story. So the ability of the Jougan, which could defy all odds to protect Boruto from dying, could be none other than time reversal. It would involve Boruto rewinding events with a localized area or specific timeline to alter outcomes, such as undoing his death at Jura's hands. The Jougan could activate instinctively in a life or death moment, similar to how it got activated against Urashiki when Boruto was pinned. The eye might actually glow, revealing a vision of possible futures or past moments, allowing Boruto to select a point to rewind to, such as seconds before Jura's attack lands. The ability might be limited to a short time frame, as well as a localized area, preventing large-scale timeline alterations to maintain narrative balance. This hypothetical time reversal ability could manifest as a Shinjutsu that manipulates time within a distinct dimensional plane, which is separate from the physical reality, where Koji's prescience and Eida's Senringan operate. The Otsutsuki abilities often involve dimensional manipulation, and the Jougan, potentially derived from Shibai Otsutsuki's divine powers, may access a unique temporal plane, a metaphysical layer of reality where time can be rewound without altering the observable present until the effect is applied. For instance, If Jura lands a fatal blow on Boruto, the Jougan could activate, pulling Boruto's consciousness into this plane to visualize and select a moment seconds prior, effectively rewinding the events. This process would occur outside the standard timeline, making it invisible to external observers or abilities tied to the physical world. Now for those of you who believe it's too early for the Jougan, I have another theory that would explain how Boruto would go against the prophecy of Kashin Koji to make it out alive from the Jura battle. It would have something to do with Momoshiki and his most awaited comeback. As you know, he has been absent from the last 23 chapters of the story, which is the entirety of the time skip side of the manga. But what's most important is that he had made a promise to Boruto that he won't let him die cause he is the precious vessel which allows him to stay in touch with the outside world. While the true reason of becoming a guardian was solely because of the fact that there was a possibility of him hijacking the vessel's consciousness, likely after the omnipotence twist. But a recent Q&A of Ikimoto revealed that Momoshiki possessed a way weaker version of future sight, which was nowhere near the level of prescience, which only meant one thing. There was literally no concrete way for his plans to fulfill in the story. But even though he cannot resurrect or steal the life of Boruto, there is still one thing that he could do, and that is to protect the vessel for as long as possible, because that would sustain the existence of his soul in this world. If by chance Boruto dies, then Momoshiki would also cease to exist, which is likely the most undesirable scenario to the Otsutsuki. In a nutshell, if there is no way left for Boruto to survive, then Momoshiki would also be left with no choice but to do something and protect the vessel. Now this reminds me of the time when he momentarily paused time to switch up with Boruto during the core fight. I believe he could be using his ability again to perform a similar miracle, but instead of taking over the vessel to fight Jura, he could simply do it to escape from the battle altogether. And just to let you know, this won't be the first time when the Otsutsuki would play such a card. In the second chapter, Code revealed that Boruto fled without doing anything during their time skip battle, but at the same time, it was revealed in chapter 15 that he activated the karma, and then he felt something similar to Momoshiki's possession, a state where he feels alive and dead at the same time. This simply means that Momoshiki took over Boruto to help him escape the battlefield, as one bite from the claw grime meant the end of the world, since the prodigy was a pure Otsutsuki. Now talking about the Jura fight, it could be that Boruto would activate the karma as a last resort, which would then bring out Momoshiki, who would instantly help the vessel to escape in this type spot in the blink of an eye. One of the reasons this possibility makes more sense than the Kawaki emergence theory is because there are a few loopholes in that one. First off, he might require to put the karma on Akebi and then check if she turned into an Otsutsuki or not, and looking at how Amado has warned him from laying a finger on her, there is no way he would head straight to Boruto after unlocking his limiters. Furthermore, no one informed him about this battle between Boruto and Jura, so it won't make sense for him to just appear there out of nowhere, meaning it's more likely for Momoshiki to appear than Kawaki to emerge with his limitless form. If you are more interested in Kawaki's role in this battle, make sure to check out this video right now. Also, don't forget to subscribe to never miss any upload, and I will see you next time.